Lagos. A city where dreams either take flight or fall hard onto cracked sidewalks. In the heart of Yoba, amidst the daily chaos of honking danfos and street vendors calling out like choir singers, lived two young women who many said were destined for greatness, Nkem and Adaeze. They weren't sisters by blood, but everyone around them assumed they were. Same school, same circle, same hunger for something bigger. Their bond had been formed years earlier on the first day of Media and Communications 101 at the University of Lagos. Nkem had forgotten her ID card and was about to be locked out of the hall. Adaeze, who didn't even know her, slipped her own card into Nkem's hand and whispered, "Just go. I'll tell them I'm late for fashion reasons." That simple act became the seed of their friendship. From then on, they were inseparable. Their classmates called them inspiration and energy, Nkem, the quiet storm who thought deeply and spoke with measured wisdom. Adaeze, the social butterfly who lit up every room and dared to say what others only thought. Together, they dreamed of changing the Nigerian media landscape, bringing real stories to life, giving voice to the unheard. After graduating, they secured internships at Mosaic Media, one of Lagos's most influential broadcasting firms. They worked late hours editing videos, running cables for live shows, fetching coffee, learning everything from lighting setups to crisis control in live newsrooms. What made them different was how well they worked as a team. Nkem was the thinker. She would spend hours poring over research, piecing together narratives that felt both local and global. Adaeze was the face. She could charm anyone, land interviews with personalities that even senior producers struggled to get. Their synergy became the talk of the office. People would say, if these two ever start their own channel, we're all finished. And yet, beneath the laughter and hashtags, cracks were beginning to form. When praise came, it often went to Nkem's intellect. When ideas were executed, Nkem was often mentioned first. Adaeze would laugh it off, but it stung. She scrolled through social media posts, seeing Nkem tagged in quote cards, her words celebrated by pages with tens of thousands of followers. Still, Adaeze smiled. Still, she reposted every video and clapped the loudest at every staff meeting. But in the quiet of her studio apartment, the question grew louder. Why does the world see her light, and not mine? At first, it was just insecurity. But insecurity, left unchecked in the heat of constant comparison, hardens into envy. And envy. Envy smiles with you in selfies. It clicks like on your wins. But behind your back, it plans your fall. The city of Lagos never truly sleeps, but there are moments, rare and golden, when silence descends just long enough for destiny to speak. It was during one of those moments at the Victoria Island Media Summit that Nkem's life shifted forever. The summit was a gathering of Nigeria's media elites, television hosts, digital creators, executives, and students packed the glittering conference hall of a luxury hotel. It was Adaeze's idea for them to attend. She even borrowed money to get their matching branded blazers made. "If we're gonna network, we better look like we own the room," she had said, posing in the mirror with a confident smirk. Nkem was hesitant. "Let's just learn and observe," she'd replied. But Adaeze's energy was always contagious. They arrived at the summit early, taking selfies near the red carpet and whispering excitedly when they spotted industry veterans. Then, the unexpected happened. The keynote speaker, a famous TV anchor, cancelled due to a flight delay. The organizers, scrambling, announced a Rising Voices segment, inviting a young media intern to share thoughts on how storytelling could transform Nigeria's youth culture. At first, no one stood. Then someone pointed at Nkem. "She's the one who made that documentary on street kids." It went viral on TikTok. The crowd turned. Panic filled her eyes, but Adaeze whispered, "Go. You've got this." Nkem walked up trembling, but as she spoke, something awakened. She talked about honesty in storytelling. About the danger of false narratives. About how media should reflect truth, not trends. Her voice, once soft, grew firm. The room with hundreds of professionals sat in stillness, hanging on her every word. By the end, the applause was thunderous. Some stood. Others wiped their eyes. What was meant to be a 10-minute filler became the highlight of the entire summit. Adaeze smiled, at first. But the applause felt like waves crashing against the wall she had built to protect her own self-worth. Back at the office, Nkem was flooded with praise. Mentors started calling her the future of broadcast. A well-known producer reposted her speech. By Monday, she was invited to lead a youth-focused docu-series for the station. Adaeze congratulated her. Hugged her. Bought her lunch. But inside, a seat had cracked open. As Nkem's star rose, Adaeze began to dim in her own eyes. Every compliment Nkem received felt like a reminder of what Adaeze didn't have. Every smile she forced felt more like a mask. At night, she'd scroll through social media, staring at Nkem's face, her quotes trending, her praises flowing. She still posted, "Proud of my sis," on Instagram. But in her heart, she wasn't proud. She was hurting. And envy was beginning to whisper in her ear. Despite her growing discomfort, Adaeze tried to maintain composure. She smiled in meetings, reposted every praise Nkem received, and even showed up to support the filming of the new docu-series Nkem was leading. But every moment in Nkem's light made Adaeze feel invisible. The tension became undeniable the day Obinna joined Mosaic Media. Fresh from a major multinational in South Africa, Obinna was the new head of communication strategy. Tall, intelligent, and composed, he was the kind of man whose presence filled a room without saying much. Within days, he had everyone's attention. Including Adaeze. She saw him as an opportunity, not just romantically, but professionally. A man like that could elevate her visibility. So she moved quickly. She complimented his watch, brought him lunch on his third day, and made sure she was always seated near him in meetings. Her laughter grew louder when he spoke. Her style subtly upgraded. She noticed his taste in music and mentioned artists she didn't even listen to. At first, Obinna was polite. Cordial. Professional. But everything shifted one Friday afternoon. There was a media planning retreat at Takwa Bay. Everyone from the creative team was invited. On the boat ride across the lagoon, Adaeze strategically sat next to Obinna. They made light conversation until Nkem boarded late and took a seat across from them. As soon as Obinna saw her, his body language changed. His smile grew more genuine. His questions deeper. And for the first time, Adaeze saw it. That look. Obinna wasn't interested in her. He was interested in Nkem. On the beach, he spent most of the day near Nkem, asking about her ideas, her values, her vision. At one point, she laughed at something he said, and he watched her in awe, as if the sun had just landed on the shoreline. Adaeze watched from under her sunglasses, pretending to nap, but her heart was burning. Not just from rejection, but from comparison. That night, Nkem posted a picture of the retreat. Obinna was standing beside her, both smiling. Her caption read, "New minds, New projects, new energy. By morning, the picture had been reposted on Mosaic's official page. Obina commented, inspired by her clarity. Adaeze's throat tightened as she stared at the comment. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She opened her WhatsApp, scrolled to a contact labeled PR with Demi, and typed, "Hey, I have a crazy idea. Need your help. Can we talk?" Something had shifted. The seed of envy had now cracked, and inside it, a plan was forming. Not to win back the spotlight, but to steal it. The next Monday morning at Mosaic Media began like any other, emails flying, coffee brewing, interns scrambling to please too many bosses. But by 10:14 a.m., everything shifted. An anonymous email hit the inbox of every senior staff member. Subject line, urgent, allegations concerning Nkem. The message was short. A voice recording was attached. In it, a woman, allegedly Nkem, was heard claiming credit for an idea she stole from an intern. The voice was calm, calculated, and sounded creepily like her. Whispers began immediately. By lunch, the audio was all over internal chats. At first, Nkem thought it was a joke. But by 3 p.m., she was called into a private meeting with HR and the head of legal. "We need to suspend you pending further investigation," they said, their voices strained but firm. She sat motionless. Her heart pounded. "What are you talking about? That's not even me." But the damage had already begun. Within hours, industry gossip blogs had picked it up. One caption read, "Golden Girl or Copycat. Mosaic star accused of stealing intern's work." #Nkem exposed began to trend by nightfall. Obina called her immediately. "Don't say anything publicly," he advised. "Let this play out. People will see the truth." But Nkem's silence was already being interpreted as guilt. Adaeze watched it all unfold with a strange mixture of satisfaction and unease. She didn't expect the backlash to escalate so quickly. She had only asked Demi, her friend in PR, to leak something spicy, to shake things up, maybe cast a little doubt on Nkem's golden image. But Demi went too far. He edited a voice note from a training session Nkem once gave and altered the pitch slightly. The trap had been set, and it worked. Everyone believed it. Except Obina. He stayed by Nkem's side, reviewing her original pitch files, creating a timeline of events, and pushing quietly for the legal team to dig deeper. Meanwhile, Nkem withdrew. She stopped answering calls. Her eyes lost their sparkle. The energy that once lit up editorial meetings dimmed. The pain wasn't just professional. It was personal. She knew in her heart, only someone close could have done this. Someone with access. Someone who knew how much this role meant to her. But who? A week later, the legal team released a quiet memo. The recording was digitally altered. It does not match Nkem's vocal signature. The tone in the office shifted, but no one knew who did it. No one, except Adaeze. She sat in the break room, watching Nkem walk past. Their eyes met. Just briefly. And in that second, Nkem knew. But she didn't say a word. 10 days after the scandal broke, the air inside Mosaic Media was thick with tension. Staff whispered in corners, avoiding eye contact whenever Nkem walked by. Though she had been reinstated, the stain of the false accusation lingered like smoke in Harmattan. But what no one expected came on a Wednesday morning. The head of legal, a quiet but thorough woman named Mrs. Temmiteo, had been running an internal forensic investigation, not just to clear Nkem's name, but to trace the source of the altered recording. What she found shocked even her. The metadata from the audio file led to a personal Google Drive folder, one that had been accessed by only 2 people. And then came the real discovery: the recording had been downloaded from a WhatsApp message sent by Adaeze. The evidence was irrefutable. That afternoon, the entire team was called into the boardroom for a surprise all-hands meeting. No one knew what it was about, only that it felt urgent. When they entered, Nkem was already seated in a corner, composed but distant. Obinna stood near her. His arms folded. His face unreadable. Adaeze arrived late, carrying her iPad and looking unbothered. Until Mrs. Temmiteo entered. She took her time, clicking the remote to project a screen on the wall. Everyone's eyes locked on what appeared to be a digital footprint timeline. At the center of it, Adaeze's name. A gasp echoed. Then came silence. "We've concluded our investigation," Temmiteo said calmly. The voice recording that defamed Miss Nkem was maliciously edited and distributed by someone within this team. She turned to Adaeze. "That person is you." The room spun. Adaeze blinked. Once. Twice. Her hands trembled as she lowered her iPad. "I didn't mean for it to go that far," she whispered. Her voice cracked, the confident veneer gone. "I was tired of being second. I just wanted to be seen." Nkem remained silent. She didn't blink. Didn't flinch. The HR director stood. "Effective immediately, Adaeze's contract is terminated. All content access will be revoked within the hour." Adaeze looked around. Not a single face offered sympathy. Even the intern she once mentored turned her gaze away. She grabbed her bag. Her heels clicking like gunshots across the tile. As she passed Nkem, she paused. Their eyes met. "You won," she said, barely above a whisper. And still, Nkem said nothing. Because this wasn't a victory. It was a funeral. Not of a friendship, but of trust. Outside the boardroom, the team slowly dispersed. Some spoke in hushed tones. Others kept quiet, haunted by the weight of what they had witnessed. Obinna turned to Nkem. "Are you okay?" She nodded slowly. "I will be." But inside her, a storm had settled. She would go on. But she would never be the same. The day after her dismissal, Adaeze disappeared. No posts. No tweets. No Insta stories. Just silence. Whispers rippled through Mosaic Media and beyond. Some said she had left Lagos. Others claimed she was hiding in shame. But Nkem didn't wonder. She wasn't interested in gossip. The betrayal still sat in her chest like cold stone. Healing, she knew, would take time. Adaeze, meanwhile, had retreated into herself. She moved out of her leaky shared apartment and into a small flat in Surrey, far from the glamorous media circle she once basked in. She sold her designer shoes online and took freelance subtitling jobs to survive. She avoided mirrors. Not because of shame, but because every time she looked at her reflection, she saw the girl who betrayed her own sister friend just to feel relevant. One Sunday morning, as she passed a small local church with an open-air service, she heard a line that stopped her mid-step. "When God wants to rebuild you, He sometimes breaks your platform first." She leaned against a wall and cried, quietly, deeply, like someone who had run out of strength. From that day forward, Adaeze changed. She started volunteering at a neighborhood youth center where they taught storytelling to teenagers in the community. She didn't introduce herself as a former producer. She just said, "I've made mistakes. But I still have a voice. And so do you." For the first time, she wasn't speaking to be seen. She was speaking to serve. She helped kids create short skits about peer pressure and digital bullying. She edited their videos with borrowed laptops and paid data bundles from her own dwindling account. And slowly, she began to feel human again. Months passed. The media world forgot about #Nkem exposed. Nkem's career flourished. She launched a new youth-focused series and won an award for emerging African storytellers. One evening, while scrolling through a friend's Instagram story, Nkem saw a clip of a youth event. In it, she spotted a woman helping teens set up a camera. Even from behind, she knew that walk. She paused the video. It was Adaeze. Several weeks later, Nkem attended an event organized by the youth center. She came in quietly, unannounced. As the event closed, a young girl stepped forward and said, "We want to thank the person who helped us believe in our stories." Then, to everyone's surprise, she called out, "Miss Adaeze, please come." The room clapped. Adaeze stepped forward, nervous but smiling. Her hair was in simple cornrows. Her clothes were plain. But her eyes, those eyes, held peace. And then she saw Nkem in the back of the room. Their eyes met. For a second, time stood still. Adaeze walked up to her. No crowd. No cameras. Just two women. She placed her hand over her chest and whispered, "I'm sorry. For all of it." Nkem looked at her. Then, slowly, she opened her arms. They hugged. Tightly. Wordlessly. Forgivingly. And just like that, something old died. And something new began. Time moved on. It always does. Nkem continued to rise in the media world, gracefully, intentionally. She no longer chased cameras or applause. Her work spoke for itself. After the betrayal, she chose her circle carefully and built with purpose. She launched her own media nonprofit, Voices Forward, dedicated to training young African storytellers from underserved communities. Her vision was clear: help others find their voice, even if hers once trembled in silence. Obinna remained by her side. Not as a romantic partner, they had chosen different paths, but as a loyal friend and believer in her gift. As for Adaeze, her life changed, but not in the way people expected. She never returned to primetime media. She didn't rebrand or seek fame again. Instead, she stayed at a community youth center in Surulere, where she discovered her calling, not as a host, but as a healer of stories. The kids loved her. Not because of what she had done before, but because of who she had become. She listened. She laughed with them. She cried with them. And every time she told her own story of envy, downfall, and redemption, someone in the room grew stronger. Outside the center, near the entrance where everyone could see, Adaeze hung two calabashes on a small wooden shelf. The first calabash was broken, once shattered from a fall, but carefully pieced back together with gold-painted adhesive, in the style of kintsugi. Its cracks gleamed in the sunlight. She labeled it, "Mended." The second calabash was smooth and untouched, still beautiful. But it was covered in dust. She labeled it, "Unused." When curious teenagers asked her what they meant, she would smile and say, "The broken one has lived, made mistakes, and found healing. The perfect one? It never took risks, so it never grew." One morning, during a special storytelling event at the center, Nkem was invited as the guest speaker. She hadn't seen Adaeze in over a year, not since the hug that ended their silence. The children clapped as Nkem spoke, but her eyes drifted to the shelf with the calabashes. She walked over to it, touched the mended one gently, then turned to the crowd and said, "Don't be afraid to break. What matters most is who you choose to become after." After the event, Nkem and Adaeze sat alone on a bench behind the center. No cameras. No scripts. Just the sounds of distant traffic and laughing children. "You found peace," Nkem said, admiring the place. "I found myself," Adaeze replied. There was a long pause. Then Nkem turned to her and smiled softly. "Funny how your downfall helped me find my own voice too." Adaeze nodded, tears glistening. Maybe we were both meant to crack. So light could pass through." The two women sat in silence. Not the kind born from awkwardness, but from wholeness. They were no longer sisters in competition, but sisters in survival. Sisters in storytelling. And as the sun began to set, its golden light caught the edges of the cracked calabash and it gleamed. That evening, long after the event had ended and the youth center had grown quiet, Nkem lingered. The children were gone. The volunteers were packing up. Yet she remained by the shelf where the two calabashes sat, still, symbolic, eternal. Adaeze walked over quietly and stood beside her. "You never asked why I did it," she said softly. Nkem didn't respond at first. She traced a finger along the cracked calabash, then spoke. "Because you were hurting. And hurt people sometimes burn others to feel warm." Adaeze closed her eyes. The truth of those words settled deep. "I wanted what you had," she confessed. "But I forgot that what I needed was to remember who I was." Nkem looked up at her. "You remembered. That's what matters." They stood in silence as the golden type of dust stretched across the walls. The broken calabash seemed to glow more than the untouched one. Suddenly, a young boy, one of the newer kids at the center, ran back in to grab his forgotten backpack. He paused when he saw the two women and the shelf. "Miss Adaeze," he asked, "which one is better?" Adaeze knelt to his level. "Depends on what you want," she said. "If you want to look perfect, pick the one with no cracks. But if you want to be strong, choose the one that's been broken, and still stands." He grinned, then ran out again, leaving the women smiling. As Nkem prepared to leave, she paused at the door and turned. "Let's do something, Adaeze." Adaeze raised a brow. "What?" "Let's teach them. Not just how to tell stories, but how to survive them. Let's show them how to use pain as ink, and healing as punctuation." And just like that, a new chapter began. In a world that teaches us to shine, we must not forget to break. Because it's in the cracks that the light gets in. Nkem and Adaeze remind us that betrayal can break your heart, but not your purpose. That envy can cloud your vision, but not your calling. And that redemption is always possible, if you're brave enough to face your shadow and walk back into the light. Sometimes, the person who hurts you the most is also the mirror showing you how much you've grown. Jealousy doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. But healing? That's what makes you powerful. If you've ever been betrayed, or if you've ever been the one who caused the pain, remember this: stories don't end in the valley. Not if you choose to climb. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Have you ever been an Nkem or an Adaeze? Please comment below. Subscribe for more African stories that heal, teach, and inspire. Because our pain deserves purpose. And our voices deserve the mic.